welcome to NameHero. I'm Ryan, the founder and CEO. In this video tutorial, I want to teach you how you can easily create, manage, and delete DNS records. So if that sounds really complicated, I promise it's not. And the purpose of this video is to walk you right through the process so you know how to easily do this. Really important for those that are using Gmail or another third-party email provider. You have to add MX records. So I'm going to show you how to do that specifically as well because I know it's a really popular one. If you don't use this here at NameHero, no worries. This video isn't just provider specific. I am going to be demonstrating today using cPanel, and I'm also going to demonstrate in Web Host Manager. So if you're at another provider and they use cPanel and or Web Host Manager, then you can follow along and do the same type of creation for your DNS records. If you haven't checked us out, NameHero, we certainly welcome you. But again, this is the purpose of this tutorial, so show you how to create these DNS records. Before we jump into creating them, let me give you the boring history lesson really quick about what DNS is, just so you're aware of how things work here. So DNS is a service that connects internet names to internet addresses. So when you go to, example, NameHero.com, you're actually going to this IP address here. And that's actually a Cloudflare IP. So, but when you type in NameHero.com, you're going to this address here. Without internet names, NameHero.com, NameHero.org, NameHero.net, Google.com, you would have to type in IP addresses, which that would be impossible. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, gosh, nowadays I don't even memorize phone numbers like I did 20 years ago. So it would be nearly impossible for the internet to be like it is today without the DNS system. So DNS, essentially, when someone types in NameHero.com, it's the system that's responsible for returning this IP address to your browser. So you type in NameHero and it brings up a website. The same is with your email. If you have Ryan@NameHero.com, when I'm sending and receiving email to that address, there has to be a system that looks up where that email inbox is located. And so that's done with the MX record. So that's the kind of the highest level explanation of DNS. You can kind of look at it like the old school phone books. You know, used to have I don't know if many people watching this video will even remember this, but it used to be like a big old thick phone directory, and you'd open it up and it'd have people's names or businesses that are local, and it would have the business name. If you scrolled over, it would be the phone number. So you'd look at the business and you'd find the phone number and punch it in. It's like ancient stuff, right? Essentially, DNS does the same thing for the internet, except instead of looking in some big directory yourself, the DNS system handles that for you. Okay, so now let's look into actually creating one of these. All right, I'm going to go to my client interface here at NameHero. And again, this is a platform agnostic video as long as you're using cPanel or Web Host Manager. Even if you're not, DNS records, you know, they're the same regardless, but the interface we're going to be using is cPanel, so it might be just for follow along purposes. So I am going to log into cPanel by clicking either this link or this link. And my example domain is keydiets.com. So today I'm just going to show you where these DNS records are located, and we're also going to add some MX records for Gmail. So I'll log into cPanel. Okay, so once inside of here, what I'm looking for is Zone Editor. So I'm just going to start typing in ZO, Zone Editor. This is where it all happens. So you can see this account I'm demonstrating on today is a business cloud package. Let's go to here. It's our business cloud package, and it allows for unlimited websites. And the reason why I mention this, not to sell you on it, is just so you know when you're looking in here, you'll see another domain in here. If you have multiple domains on your cPanel account, you're going to have multiple domains in your DNS zone file. And when I get over to Web Host Manager towards the end of this video, that's a whole different story as well. But it's likely if you just have one domain in your cPanel, you'll only see one domain here. So keydiets.com, that's my master domain. You can see I've got some quick links to add an A record, to add a CNAME record, to add an MX record, to enable DNSSEC, or actually manage my existing records. I think most everyone wants to start by managing because you don't want to just add a record until you go see what's actually there. Okay, so if I look down here, here's all the DNS records that are added for my web hosting account. Now, before I need to check one thing out here before we go and modifying these. All of this is assuming you're using the name servers for your cPanel account. So at NameHero, for example, you'll see my name servers for keydiets.com should be set to ns1 and ns2.namehero.com. Because when you type in keydiets.com, it needs to get to this IP address. Well, how does it get to it? DNS, as we've learned. How does it use DNS? We actually input these name servers at our domain registrar, and that's what brings it all together. So even if I had keydiets.com, it's at NameHero, but if it was at GoDaddy, I could use my NameHero hosting even though my domain's at GoDaddy. I just have to go to GoDaddy and plug in these name servers, and see it links it all together. So if your domain's registered elsewhere, you can still use hosting at NameHero. If your domain's registered at NameHero, you can still use hosting elsewhere. And I'll show you what that looks like if I go to domains and my domains. And then I go down to key diets. You'll see in here the DNS section. Now the important note when we're talking about name servers, if you modify these, this can take up to 24 hours to propagate. And you could break your website for a little bit, right? Because once you update name servers, this has to propagate across the internet. Now, nowadays in 2023 in the United States, this happens normally within 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours tops. However, there are cases to where you're cached locally, depending on how your local system's set up. And so I always tell customers, you know, if you're going to make a DNS change, I always recommend making it on the weekend, during non-peak hours, non-business hours, when you're trying to get emails and send transactional emails. But to do it in a time period that's down, but also to realize that it could take 24 hours for them to fully get into effect. So if you have a customer or a client out there, you know, do this on Friday or Saturday night. So then by the time Monday morning rolls around, everything's not knocked out. Okay, so again, I'm just making sure that Key Diets is using the name servers of my hosting package at my domain registrar, which happens to be the same, which it is. I say this because some people like to use Cloudflare for DNS, meaning that Cloudflare serves all their DNS records, and they actually have their name servers set to that of their Cloudflare account. And so if they go into cPanel to edit their DNS in here, this isn't going to work because it's at their domain registrar, it's telling the DNS system, hey, use Cloudflare's name servers to find what you're looking for. This is saying use NameHero servers to find what you're looking for. So that's a really big, very, very big distinction, because if my name servers aren't set properly, then this won't do anything. Okay, so you'll see all these are default records for the most part, and you don't want to go modifying unless you know exactly what you're doing. You certainly don't want to go deleting. You know, for example, an A record, that's actually what links up the internet name to the IP address. So keydiets.com goes to this IP address here. A CNAME. A CNAME is like an alias. Whoops. So you can see we don't have to add an A record for mail.keydiets because it's going to be an alias of keydiets.com. So essentially it's saying treat mail.keydiets.com the same as you would keydiets.com, which is this IP. So that's what a CNAME is. MX is our mailer exchange record, and this is what sends out emails. So if you go to email ryan@keydiets.com, the DNS system looks for the mail servers on these records. Let's see if I can't just sort them. Yep, if I filter it, you can see it's going to say, hey, the mail server is located the same place Key Diets is, which, if we go to A records, is right here. Now, if you want to use Google email, like G Suite, Google Apps, you have to change these or your email won't work. So this is one we see a lot of customers, sometimes get confused with. It's super easy to change, but please know once you make this change, your email accounts in cPanel no longer will function. So how we have our email accounts here, these won't function if I change my MX records and change them to Google. Okay, so I've got a Google help doc up here, and this shows if you use Google Workspace, I guess they call it Google Workspace now. They rebrand all the time. I can't keep it straight. So if you use Google Workspace for your email, like Gmail, but brand it your domain, you would want to set these up to send your email to Google. So the other part about this is these are multiple mail servers, but really only one's going to be used at any given time. The reason why you're entering multiple ones is in case this mail server craps out, quits working, you'll try this one, you'll try this one, you'll try this one, you'll try this one. That adds high availability. As you can see right now, we only have one mail server connected, which is our hosting account. And so there's no high availability to that because it's on the same account. So that's why there's one MX record, whereas Google has you add like 5. So I'm going to delete this because I am going to switch my mail. Okay. So now my email is broken. It's not going to work right now. So I'm going to add my record, and this is going to be an MX record. So you can either just add record and click it here, or you can click add MX record. Either one works. If I go back to Google, blank or my @ sign, and priority 1 to this. So the most important part is, I guess this can be here. Well, I guess it can be blank. We'll see. Destination, this is the most important part because this is going to say, well, 1 MX because it's a mail exchange record, and it's going to have Google. Let's see if it'll save it. Nope, got to add key diets. Okay. Fields required. Okay, we have to have our priority. So this is when we're managing multiple mail servers. This is the one with the lowest priority is the least. The highest priority is the least. The lowest priority is the preference. I'm sorry, I said this wrong. The preference can be the lower one, or it can be 10 by default. So by default, you can see here, a lower number has a higher priority. So 10's the default. 10's the default priority. But if you add a 1 to 5, they take priority over 10. So at number 1, it's going to check this mail server first. But again, this is only applicable if you have multiple mail servers, such as Google. So we're going to add a 1, save. So now this tells the DNS system that when we're requesting Ryan at keydiets.com for email, it's going to say, hey, go look at Google servers, because that's who has it. And this, again, does deem my cPanel email no longer will work because I've now told it to send it to Gmail. And then, you always want to add these extra ones if they have it because it's only a benefit. If it can't deliver to this email server for whatever reason, Google blows up or whatnot, it'll check this next one and next one and next one and next one. And again, that's also why we put priority, so it doesn't do everything at once. And again, we can also just add MX like this. And we've learned we got to add the fully quantified domain. This priority has 5, and this is Google. Save record. Okay, so that's how those records are added for our MX. Now, if you're doing this and you're using cPanel, you also want to tell cPanel that you're routing it externally. So if I go in here, and let's see, they've changed up their interface just a bit. Email routing, keydiets.com. You can see by default it's set to the local mail exchanger. So if I change it to Google, I want to go to the remote. You can have it automatically detect it, but since I just manually went in and add Google, it would probably select that, but I'm going to remote because I just changed it. So now I've told cPanel, and I've also told my zone editor that any email needs to come to Google. And you can confirm this by using DNSHero.com. This is a free tool provided here at NameHero. Even if you're not a customer, you can use it. If I just type in keydiets.com into here, it's going to give me a report on what my DNS looks like. If you see red on here, red's bad. So if you have red, you've got an issue with your DNS, and you probably need to solve that issue. If you're a customer at NameHero, submit a ticket, we'll look into it, or a live chat. But if you look down here in the MX section, you're going to see here's those Google MX servers that I've added. So once again, we added the fully quantified domain, but it also actually is connecting to an IP address. So those are showing here, even though we didn't have to enter those. Now, I'm going to revert back to my local just so I don't mess up my account because I really don't have a Google mailbox set up for this. I just wanted to highlight that because some of our customers get really confused on where they go to configure that. And again, I just set up the first 2. You'd want to set up all of them so you have redundancy on your email if you are using Google Workspace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to add back my local records. So my local, add MX, keydiets.com, MX, I use priority 0, destination keydiets.com, and save. All right, so now my MX record's back on the server. And then I go back over here to my email routing, and I change that back to local, or I could automatically detect it, I guess, but it's no local for sure. And you can click these for explanations. All right, so that's how we edit, modify DNS records. MX is a good one to test with. CNAMEs are also a good one because that's an alias. So essentially, if you wanted to use mail.keydiets.com, that's going to be how you connect your email client. It's essentially just a CNAME to KeyDiets. And so that's a CNAME is basically just an alias. So if I wanted to, I can add as many CNAMEs as I want to. Just click Add CNAME and say I wanted to add, I don't know, cname.keydiets.com. And so if I was to type in this in my browser or type it into my phone as a host name, it won't go anywhere unless it resolves. So I give it an IP. What's the deal here? It's saying IP4. That's the second weird error I've had today. Oh, maybe this is why. No, that's not going to matter. It needs to be fully quantified. Oh, I see. Since I'm adding a CNAME, it can't be an IP address. It's got to be a fully qualified domain. Get far too ahead of myself, Ryan. Okay, so now I added a CNAME for cname.keydiets.com, which essentially all this is saying that when someone accesses cname.keydiets.com, treat it the same way you would keydiets.com, which has an A record of this. Okay, so CNAMEs are not complicated. It's just an alias to an already existing record. So you want to make sure that this record has an A record, because an A record is what actually hooks it up to the IP address. Okay, so CNAMEs are just an alias. A records are the really important ones. MX, these are really important for your email. If you're using the native cPanel email, like I've demonstrated, you don't have to do anything. If you're using external, Zoho Mail or another service, Outlook, then you would change those here. Text records, these are how we handle things like SPF, DKIM, like authentication for email to prevent spoofing and spamming and all that fun stuff. Some of these are automatic, actually these all are automatically generated for email authentication. You might have an opportunity with Google if you run like the tag manager for ads or Google Analytics. You have to add sometimes records to your DNS to confirm DNS ownership. So this is where that happens. Text records are just something so the internet system, DNS system, can verify the actual IP address or ownership of whatever DNS record it is. So it gets a little complicated and challenging. I'm not going to get into the specifics behind that because I don't want to confuse you. DNS is simple, trying to keep this simple. Our main records are A records. That's what connects our domain to our IP address. Those are really important. CNAMEs are aliases. You'll notice too that www.keydiets.com, that's a separate record in itself. So just if I have KeyDiets in here, www is treated differently than just keydiets.com. So that's why by default you'll notice that www, it's going to be treated the same as keydiets.com, but it's just essentially an alias. So that's it's important because some people just assume that www is just World Wide Web and it works. Well, no, it's actually a CNAME of your root domain or wherever you have it set up to go to. You could essentially set another IP, I suppose, but it wouldn't be a CNAME. So this is default with cPanel though, and many other DNS providers, kind of default the main records. Last thing I want to show you is if we're using Web Host Manager. So those of you that have a VPS or have a reseller account at NameHero, Web Host Manager is kind of the father of cPanel. It's the master control panel for cPanel. And those of you that have a VPS with us or a reseller, you'll notice you can set up cPanel accounts, which I have another KeyDiets cPanel account. So this has a zone editor just like I showed you, except the default theme. So it's the same zone editor, and this is like a per customer basis. But if you have access to Web Host Manager, you actually have a much broader DNS zone editor, meaning that all the stuff set up on your VPS or on your reseller account can be edited from inside of here. Now, mine's probably not going to work inside of here because I killed my cluster. So hang on 1 second. I was filming earlier today on DNS cluster. Today's my DNS day. And I've got to disable my cluster, configure cluster, because I got rid of it. Yeah, it's probably going to time out. So that's the difference is Web Host Manager, it's got the same zone editor just like this, However, it's a broader view for all the cPanel accounts. So if you have a VPS and you have multiple, maybe you're a reseller web host and you have multiple customers, using the zone editor here, the DNS zone editor, you can modify zone records for multiple clients without having to log into each cPanel. So that's the main difference. Besides that, it's all the same type of records. Even if you're using Plesk or another control panel out there, the DNS records are still the same. It's still A records, CNAMEs, MX records, text records. That's what DNS, those are the DNS records. As well as if you want to check your DNS, DNSHero.com is a great way to do it. So remember, we changed these out. Let's refresh it. And you can see, boom, we're back to the mail record locally. So this tool is 100% free, easy to use. You're just looking to make sure you have no red once you go poke around at your DNS. If you see red, then you got a problem and you want to resolve that. Even if your site appears to be working just fine, if you see red on this page, you need to investigate it. If you're a customer with us, submit a ticket or a live chat, we'll look into it. If you have another provider, you want to bring that up to their attention. And these reports are public. You can copy and paste this and send this around. So that's how you add, manage, make sure we got everything here. This is how we add, manage, and delete DNS records. I already explained what a DNS record is and how it syncs everything up. And also we can use DNSHero.com to check our work, to make sure everything looks good and our DNS is resolving smoothly. The only other big thing with DNS, if you are changing your domain's name servers, you go in at GoDaddy or NameHero and you're changing your name servers, these could take up to 24 hours to fully propagate, which means my DNS records, if I'm modifying like my MX records and my name servers, like all that might take just a little bit to fully propagate. So don't do it during Monday morning at 8 a.m. where you're needing your email all day. Make sure you're changing that stuff during your down hours so you don't have any interruption in service. If you're migrating, say NameHero from another provider, you want to make sure your website's copied over before you do that, as well as your email boxes, just so everything doesn't get jumbled up and lost. So if this video helped you out, I certainly do appreciate all the thumbs up we get on it. Feel free to leave a comment or question if you still have questions or doubts on what I showed. I know it's kind of multiple spots here, but feel free to comment on this and I'll try to get back to those as fast as I can. If you are a customer at NameHero, I always ask, please open a ticket or a live chat if it's urgent, because we are standing by 24/7, 365 to help you with your hosting account, your domains, and your DNS records. I do check these comments. Sometimes I get behind on them. I know, or someone calls me out on it. I know. I'm trying to go through them all. So, but feel free to leave a comment. I will try to get back to you. I'm trying to work on be better with that. And also mash that subscribe button. Today's tutorial on DNS, it's just one piece. There's many other tutorials that we're filming here. If you mash that subscribe button, each time we post a new one, you'll get a red button or red notification up on top of YouTube, and it'll let you know that there's a hot new video to watch and might have a helpful tip. You never know. But thanks so much for watching and using us here at NameHero.com.